Welcome you to the library track of the TLT summer series. My name is Emily Rimland. I am the coordinator of the library track. We will be getting started in just a minute. So please feel free to stay on. And again, this will be recorded later if you're not able to stay. As two other reminders, just for housekeeping, if you're having technical difficulties, please feel free to send a message to the panelists in the chat and someone will get back to you. If you have questions for the presenters, the way we're going to run this is as lightning talks. So if you have questions, they're not going to take them in between, but we'll monitor the chat for questions that may regard their presentation after they've finished. So that's the way we're going to take questions, unless for some reason we have some time at the end. So again, just sit tight for 1 minute. We will get started momentarily. Okay, I see Barbara, you're there, you're all set?
Yep, I'm ready.
Ready? Okay, let me just say a quick intro for you. Welcome everybody again to the Technology Summer Series, and this is the library track. I am Emily Rimland. I'm the coordinator for this track this year. I'm happy to say we have a full slate of lightning talks today. So presenters will not take questions in between, but please feel free to use the Q&A to ask questions, and they will respond to you there once they're done presenting. We have an incredible lineup, and we're very excited for all the presentations in our series. And we're going to kick off with our first presentation today. It's called The Spark of Learning, Connecting a Faculty Learning Community with our library collection. And that is going to be presented by Barbara Eschbach at our York campus. Over to you, Barbara.
Thank you. So I led a TLT faculty learning community, which is known as an FLC this past year. And today I'm going to share my experience with that. And I'm also going to share the website that I created. So I'm going to share my screen and take you through the website that we used both in the spring and in the fall. We did different books each time, so mainly I'm going to talk about the one that we did in the fall. Our campus had a reading group for several years, and the group had chosen a book, The Spark of Learning, Energizing the College Classroom with the Science of Emotion, for their fall 2019 reading. Knowing of my interest in the subject of curiosity, our campus instructional designer asked if I would be interested in submitting a proposal to have the reading group as part of an FLC. So I read the book and I knew I wanted to be part of this when I came across this sentence. I've been working on developing a new collection for our campus library called the Spark Collection, and this sentence in the book summed up nicely what I'm hoping to accomplish. The quote is directed to teaching faculty. However, at the end, if you substitute the word collection for courses, you have the goal for what I'm hoping for with our Spark collection. So while there are other emotions discussed in the textbook, which we explored, my interest in leading the group centered on curiosity. So I submitted a proposal and it was accepted, and I led a year-long FLC. In the fall of 2019, we read the book, The Spark of Learning. And then in the spring, we did the missing course, Everything They Never Taught You About College Teaching. So the URL for this website should be in chat. So if you want to explore this website later, you can also click on the missing course link and you'll see the website I created for the spring. And then there is a link to faculty learning communities. So if you're interested in learning about this TLT initiative and possibly doing a proposal in the future, you can find out information there. What I'm going to focus on, well, I'll give you a brief overview of this website. So you'll see the schedule for each of the 4 sessions where we met in the fall. There'll be questions that people were to think about before we came together. Sometimes there would be an assignment to do. You can see the goals that we had for this learning community. And then across the top of the website, there's a link for each of the 4 times that we met in the fall. And we met in the library, and hopefully you can see from this picture, the library conference room was a perfect place to hold this. And as you go through the website, I'm sorry, I don't know how that came about. I was muted for a second. But hopefully as you go through the website, you'll get a sense of the collegiality that we developed in this group over the course of the year. What I want to focus on for the remainder of my time, though, is the Spark collection. So I want to make a connection between the FLC that I led, the Spark collection, and curiosity. Our tagline for this Spark collection at Penn State York is, when you need an idea, come to the library, we're full of them. So the goal really is to use curiosity to invite students into this collection, and the Spark of Learning text from the FLC gave us the opportunity to really think deeply about curiosity as one of the emotions involved in learning. So my hope for the FLC was to develop more in-depth relationships with faculty from different disciplines and ask them for their help in starting this collection. I envision all different types of materials in this collection, but I need guidance from faculty following. What are the core concepts, the driving questions, the big ideas in their disciplines? Think back to that quote with the picture of the squirrel. What books, articles, websites, videos, games could help their students who need ideas or who are struggling with particular threshold concepts? Fortunately, our small FLC group included faculty in numerous disciplines. We had English, math, business administration, chemistry, IST, and education. So after a year of meetings, I feel that I can really count on this group to support and contribute to my efforts in developing this area of the library as a vital resource for students. This is a picture of the area of the library that we remodeled for the Spark collection. We replaced stacks that went up to the ceiling with low stacks, creating a U-shape that you can kind of enter this Spark collection area. Natural lighting comes in from the back. And you can see that I'd like to have this area include big signs to draw people in to the area. So there'd be questions and colorful images that hopefully would engage students, that they would go into this area themselves to explore, or that we could use this area to help them find opportunities to enter and use the library resources. So I thought, if curiosity can motivate us to learn, how can we really use our collection and our expertise to spark curiosity in our students, especially when it comes to helping them select topics for assignments? I think we need to find opportunities to help students find articles that interest them. This is the curiosity part. And then help them learn how to develop good research questions and engage in the research process using these articles. I think it's really important to have an early assignment, one with low stakes, where finding the topic, the concept, the idea, the question isn't the struggle for the student. Make that the fun part for them. Then we can help them get on with the work of fulfilling the requirements of the assignment. I really think students need to be successful early on in order to want to continue to use the library resources. They need to feel that those resources are relevant and that they can be successful using them. At least on our campus, often the first experience students have using library resources involves an English 15 concept paper where they have to explore a theory, a concept, or phenomena. So looking at this picture, why is this car smiling? I think having a question like this can be a really good starting point for them. But before I go into that a little in more detail, I think there are two really important points I need to make. First of all, just building this Spark collection and having these colorful images with questions, that in isolation is not enough. So we need to take those interesting questions and displays as an entry into this collection, and then we have to combine their sense of curiosity and creativity with developing these information literacy skills and helping them find, locate, and evaluate information. So it's really important to follow up these interesting displays that you create with additional displays to help guide them through the research process. So in the Spark collection area, once they're in there, they see the same picture, the smiling car, and it's related to an academic journal article. A quote is pulled out of the article. It's related to a book that's in the collection. And then you can work with a student, or they can work through this themselves, where they see the article, they see how to find the full text of the article in one of the library databases. You help them, or you pull out an interesting quote from the article so that you can talk to them about that. You can show them how the researchers explored this whole topic. We often help students cite articles. And then we're really good at showing them the reference list and following up on resources for more information or for other ideas. And so having one of the sources from that reference list as part of the Spark collection really gives them an idea of the bigger picture of this question. But as part of this display, you also want to get them to really think about, again, this bigger picture. And so this whole idea of seeing a face in a bumper of a car, or seeing faces in inanimate objects, really is the bigger picture of our ancestors that we evolved from, that it was safer for them to see a face when there wasn't one than to miss a face when there was one. And so that can lead them to thinking a lot of other questions. So in this display, you'll see down here, I have a little box with index cards. And these are cards that you can use to have a discussion with the students, or that they can explore on their own. But thinking about this, there's a quote in the book that's on display about having a Stone Age brain in a modern environment. Maybe that's of interest to the student. What are some consequences of that? What are some other theories that they could explore? And then you'll have other terms at the bottoms of these cards that they could use as keywords to explore this further. But then you want the display to also be interactive. So have an iPad as part of the display and have them go through this little online experiment of whether or not they see faces. And in this activity, it actually puts a name to this concept or phenomena. So you can see the phenomena is called pareidolia. And then they go through this little test where, can you see a face, yes or no? And then it compares them to 2,000 other people who took the same quiz, whether or not they could see a face. So now they've expanded this idea. They've got a name for it. It's a phenomena. That in itself could be something they'd use. But then expand it again to the whole campus community and have an Instagram contest on your library Instagram account, where you have them tag photos, whether they saw a face in a cloud or in a potato chip. Have a contest and tag it PSY see this face. So now you've really expanded this whole thing, and hopefully are sparking curiosity in ways that you would attract students in many different ways. The Spark collection, I started with the math collection. There was a professor last year who generously donated some leftover funds from a grant. So we purchased a lot of interesting math books. But again, it's not just having these things there. You need to do something with them. So as part of that math display, we describe another phenomena, and we give a little activity so students can explore that phenomena. And then we show them in one of the books in the Spark collection where they can find out something more about that phenomena. And so it just makes it a little more interesting when you're trying to work with a student. This I envision as a large sign that we would have. It's pretty surprising that in a room of just 23 people, you actually have a 50% chance of at least 2 of them having the same birthday. And so that whole paradox is explained in one of the books in the math collection. But again, this is an interesting question that you could expand to a contest through the library, where you would find someone else on campus who shares your birthday. You'd come into the campus library with that person and win a prize. So the whole idea with this is to spark some interest, to make your course or your collection come alive for your students. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Your timing was spot on for that. Okay, we're going to switch to our next talk, which is called Using and Creating OER, Tools and Tips You Can Leverage Today. And our presenters are Bonnie Imler and Annie Taylor. Bonnie and Annie, over to you.
Sorry, I just want to quickly introduce us. Actually, Brian McGeary is here as well, and Bonnie, and we are here today as representatives of the university's Open and Affordable Education Working Group, part of the strategic plan teams. Our working group is a collective of individuals from across the university. We were charged in 2017 to implement the recommendations of the 2016 OER Task Force report to develop new programs targeted at open and affordable educational resources for students and to pilot selective initiatives. So our goal for the next few minutes is to give you something really useful as faculty prepare to teach this fall. And that is a step-by-step process for finding OER at Penn State that you can use in your courses. So with that, I'm going to introduce Bonnie Imler. She is the head librarian at Penn State Altoona and the interim head librarian at Penn State Du Bois. So Bonnie, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Wonderful, thank you. So basically, this presentation evolved out of a conversation that we had not too terribly long ago, a few weeks ago. And basically what we were discussing was the fact that there's been a lot of emphasis on faculty creating their own OER materials, which is wonderful. And we definitely wanted to praise those people who have taken that big step. But also that there's much more simple steps that you can take to implementing an OER resource into your course, and we wanted people to be aware of that. So what we came up with was a flow chart, and let me go ahead and click here. And this is the flow chart. You do not have to squint. I'm going to go through all of this. And hopefully this flow chart will very soon will be on the Penn State OER website. So you'll be able to download it and have your own copy. And but I didn't want you to try to enlarge anything right now. We're going to go through this kind of step by step. And one of the first steps in this process is, does the library have the title? And I found with my own experience with students coming in, normally asking for their textbooks after the bookstore has already sent them back. The ones that didn't purchase them and thought they were going to be able to the whole semester get kind of antsy, and they come in. And what I found was that actually a good number of these books we had available as ebooks in the catalog, and the students didn't realize it. So one of the easiest search that you can do is go to libraries.psu.edu, go to that big find search box, and search for your title of your required text. Use quotation marks around the title. That'll make things a little bit easier. And if we do have the book as an ebook, that will appear on the next screen. On the right-hand side, it has books and ebooks, and you'll be able to see very clearly if it is an ebook. Another thing that you can do if either the ebook is available in the catalog is use all the features that are available. We have several different platforms that our ebooks are actually part of, but most of them have things that allow you to save to the bookshelf, your own personal bookshelf. You may be asked to create your own password for that. And you can save your highlighting and the bookmarking features on it. So if one of these books is available, often they'll have what we call a durable URL, which is a direct URL that you can put directly in Canvas. And I encourage you to find out about the highlighting and the bookmarking features so that you can better inform your students in your courses on how to use those. Because that's one of the biggest things that I hear is, but I like to highlight. And some students really like to highlight. So they can do it. It's just as rewarding in an ebook. The next thing I wanted you to think about is, do you only need a small part of the book? This is something that I overhear at the reference desk a lot. I will hear students ask another student if they're going to be taking a certain course in the future, and they'll say, well, you have 3 books you have to buy, but the third one, you only use 1 chapter out of it. Okay, the students recognize that. You need to recognize that. So if there is one that you only use a very small amount for, you need to go to libraries.psu.edu and look up electronic reserves. As long as it does not exceed more than 15% of the total book, the libraries can scan that and actually have it made as an electronic reserve that will automatically be added to your Canvas course. So it'll be under your library resources tab in Canvas, and it'll actually be in there as an electronic reserve. So you can save your students a lot of money that way if there is a book that you only use a very small amount. Okay. Next up is what I'm really excited about. Starting July 1st, we have a new resource available for faculty only that is the EBSCO Faculty Select. And you're going to be able to find it off of the library's website. It is access to open textbooks, and you can also request access to unrestricted library ebooks from top academic publishers. So this isn't an exhaustive list of everything that's available as OER, but it does have a huge amount of resources in it. And the best part is that it is, you can do a search in it. You can do a subject search. And that's what I think is one of the best things about it. So if your actual required text is not available as an ebook that the library can purchase, you can do a search for other ones on the same subject. And I found that to be really rewarding. So the open textbooks you can use immediately. The ones that come from top academic publishers that are available as an ebook with unrestricted use, you can actually order it just off of this database, and the library will pick it up and put it in the catalog. So this is a wonderful, wonderful resource that we're about to get. Okay. The next part of this is, do you want to adopt or adapt a new text? So there's 2 different URLs here that you can use. And this gives you links to other OER or OAER repositories. So this may give you access to some things that are not available in the EBSCO database that I discussed, and including like large universities and stuff. So you're going to have to do a little bit more searching in this to be able to find your topic, and some large universities may have a resource for in your area and others may not. I will say that the first 3 steps that I did, you can honestly do this in less than a half an hour, those first 3 steps, just to check and see what's available. This, you're starting to get into a little bit more work and having to search through some more links. And I would just say, if you're considering adapting, so adopting would be completely using what has been created as it stands. If you'd like to adapt it, just pay really close attention to the wording of the Creative Commons license. And we have librarians actually at each campus, and definitely Brian at University Park, to help you out with the Creative Commons license and what you are and are not allowed to change in things. If you want to create your own resource, okay, we do encourage that. And there are campus and university resources to provide financial time, and definitely the technology assistance. And once again, those same sources I was telling you about, there are library OER liaisons at each campus, and they are happy to help you with this. And I included Brian's contact information here also. Originally, this was to be the last slide, so I was going to end you with this, but, oh, sorry, inform your students, something got put in here wrong. Apologize for that. Sorry, something got in the way here. Okay, I'll tell you about the last part. So the last part is, if you go to, I'll stop my share here. There we go. Sorry about that. The last part is that Barnes & Noble will allow you to go in to their site where you normally put in what your required texts are, and you can choose that there is no required text, okay? And then there's a notes field that you can put in the information on how they can access your OAER resource. So whether that's a straight URL, whether it is from the library catalog, any way that works for you, you can put that in there, and that informs your students before they purchase the book. So I think that was it. Annie, do you have anything to add?
Sorry, I had to figure out where my mute button went. That was fantastic. The only thing I'd like to add is that just again, that as Bonnie said, that flow chart is going to be added to the oer.psu.edu website that the libraries host. We love that site, bookmark it. And Bonnie and Brian and I were talking about doing a lengthier webinar potentially next month on this topic, maybe an entire hour where we can really look at some of these resources in depth. So if you think that would be of interest, please let one of us know. We're trying to kind of gauge interest, so that would be fantastic. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you both, Bonnie and Annie. We're going to switch to our next lightning talk. This one is called Online Students Need Library Instruction, Make It a Reality. And the presenter is Victoria Raish. So Tori, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Emily. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, get the presentation. Okay. I should probably turn off word party in the background. Okay. My kids are quiet right now. No promises for the next 10 minutes. So thank you for coming to the TLT Summer Series. My name is Victoria Raish. I'm the online learning librarian for Penn State. I've been in this role since January 2016, so going on a little over 4 years. Sorry. So this is the brief presentation outline to talk a little bit about student experiences with their library presence in online learning, some examples of common complementary instruction integrations, both residentially and in the online environment, some examples of success, and then this is combined approach, but collaborative approach, and then a toolkit for library integration that you'd want to integrate into your own, potentially into your own classes or classes that you design for. So when I first started this position, pretty soon after, I created a mission and vision statement for my own personal position. And so my mission in this position is really driven heavily, I'm gonna switch rooms because my kids are coming to this room, but my role here in this position has really been driven heavily by this idea, this notion of equivalent access or entitlement access for all Penn State students. And we all know what happens past semester and what potentially could happen for fall, so I'm not going to belabor that point. But rural campus students traditionally have not had a dedicated focus on what their experience is like from a library perspective. And so I really rely heavily on the ACRL standards for distance learning and this idea of equivalent experiences. So a lot of what I talk about today is going to be driven from this higher perspective of what the standards in distance librarianship dictate for how distance and online students should really be experiencing and have the opportunities to experience library instruction and services, and also from the needs of our learners at Penn State. So this infographic comes from, and I made it a little bit, unfocused just so you could see what the infographic really was showing. And so this comes from a survey that we did, an Ithaca survey we did with undergraduate students in 2016, which really focused on all students, but we were able to pull out some specific rural campus data. So we wanted, we were wondering where rural campus students started their research, and then we wanted to see in general what the student experience looks like for rural campus students versus other library patrons overall, which includes everyone at University Park, but then also everyone at the Commonwealth campuses as well. And so as you can see, most rural campus students start their experience with Google. And so, there's a lot of reasons for this. Google's convenient, all of those kinds of things. But also that comment at the bottom is a comment and a question that we get fairly often, which is this misperception that you have to pay for articles from the library if you're a rural campus student, or that library services in some capacity are not available to you as a rural campus student. You don't have the same access, those kinds of things. So those questions from students are very common. Okay, so they tend to not have as much experience with the library or as much experience talking or interacting with the librarian as our residential students would. And you can see there, that is a huge difference, those last 2 points. 65% of rural campus students have never interacted with the librarian, and only 11% know that they've interacted with the subject specialist. Obviously, these questions have some level of bias in them because you're assuming that that a student is going to know they're talking to a subject specialist or know they're speaking with a librarian, those kinds of things. But it is telling that the numbers are significantly different than they are for library patrons overall, including the number of rural campus students who have had some level of library instruction. Now, this survey came out basically right when I started, a few months after I started in this position. And so it would be my hope that these numbers would be higher, and we can see later on some successes with that, but we have not obviously ran the survey again, so unsure about the statistical adjustments that have happened in the past few years. So residentially, we have some common library instruction approaches that many of you might be familiar with. The most common way that we teach classes is through this one-shot model, or potentially we go into the class more than once, where we go and deliver some sort of lesson plan, learning objectives related to what the students are working on at that point in time. Sometimes we'll go in more than once and build on what we've done the first time. Occasionally, we'll have a flipped classroom approach where we're able to do some sort of digital learning object and then teach in the classroom as well. And then follow-up research consultations. And there are librarians at Penn State who focus on being embedded in residential courses, so really attending the courses and serving as a librarian for that course for the entire semester. When we look at what's happening in the online space, right, it makes sense to start with what's happening in Canvas. So I'm going to briefly go over this slide because many of you are familiar with some of these things. They have their place in Library Resources tab in Canvas, which is automatically turned on unless you turn it off. And so these show up for students their subject guides in Canvas, any kind of e-reserves or ebooks that they might have. I'm not going to say that every ebook is in Canvas based on the last presentation with Bonnie and searching for ebooks. This is for Rural Campus, we're able to put every single ebook into Canvas. We also have expanded that particular program to IST and engineering. And then if there's additional requests, we take them as they come, but that program has not been scaled beyond that at this point. And then also within Canvas, we have 2 modules that I'm going to cover in more detail later that allows you to do this kind of plug and play development of content into various courses. So these are some of the common online library instruction integrations, and I'm going to just really briefly, 30 seconds, cover each one of these. And of course, we can have a larger conversation offline if you're interested in what these really entail or more examples. I have not included, for the purposes of brevity today, I have not included any statistics or assessments or anything like that. It's really just talking about kind of this toolkit and the models that you might want to adopt in your classes. So the first one is the Information Literacy Repository. These are modules that can plug and play in Canvas. It's an open course in Canvas. If you're interested in seeing what's in there, you just send me an email or Rachel Perry an email. We get you added to the space and you can see what content is there. So a great example of like the content that's there is that we have one for APA citations, and kind of understanding connecting in-text citations to the reference list is really the focus of that module, but we have other ones. And a lot of these come from subject librarians who maybe developed a module, they're embedded in another class, they just needed some sort of learning object for a class and they want to share it more broadly with other librarians or with instructional designers to adapt and build from. So all of these are licensed that you can adapt and attribute, right? So if you use something for, a great example is, there's one in there for IST and database searching. If you wanted to use that as a model, but use it instead in political science or something like that, it's easy to adapt to another field, another course. These are our digital badges. Many people hear us talk about the library digital badges a lot, so I'm not going to belabor the point, but this is a hierarchy we've created to integrate digital badges regarding information literacy or library skills into various courses. We've issued over 10,000 badges at this point to several thousand students. We have multiple people evaluate them. And this is a more high-touch model, but we have embedded librarians. And so this is a librarian who's actually added to a course in Canvas. Maybe there is a heavy research component in the course, or maybe there is some other reason that a librarian is going to have a more in-depth and long-term relationship with the students. And so there's approximately 15 to 16 librarians embedded in a variety of courses that help students with their research assignments, help students search and evaluate information, any kind of concepts and constructs as such. We have Credo information literacy modules, which are a little bit different than the repository I mentioned earlier. These tend to be shorter. They are specific learning objects. There's both tutorials, videos, and quizzes as well. Some quizzes connected to those tutorials and videos, but these are LTI actually in Canvas, or you can embed them as a standalone module for students to get a quick refresher, a quick introduction on particular concepts, such as, for example, evaluating information. We also provide course and assignment consultations. So a great example of this, why we might do it, is to hopefully, in the long run, right, improve student learning outcomes and improve the student's research process and the quality of work they're turning in. A great example of this is a discussion board activity that we reimagined in HPA 210 Rural Campus. And we created this What's on the Web Evaluating Information activity. Kat Phillips is the librarian that works directly with those students. She manages the discussion board for the weeks that they do the What's on the Web activity. And the class is all about health insurance. So it's a very relevant topic for finding open resources on the web. And these people are going to, be future health professionals, or maybe they're seeking a promotion in healthcare, something like that. And so it's very common conversations that they might have with their patients or their clients down the road. The OER ebook program is not directly instruction, but can certainly improve student learning outcomes. And so this is obviously connected to OER at Penn State, but in particular, These ebooks we found to be available, ebooks in general from the library, we found to be available for anywhere from 16 to 19% of courses. And this program launched in the fall of 2017. We've potentially saved students based on course enrollments, book costs, and a calculation using those numbers over $1 million total cumulatively. And that obviously depends on every student using the ebook. We realize that not every student is going to use the ebook, but that's a potential cost savings. So finally, another piece of like a toolkit for library integrations is we have OL 2400, which is a World Campus faculty development course. It was created in collaboration with a librarian at Penn State Abington, Christina Riemann-Murphy, and Rachel Perry, who's an instructional designer for World Campus and also an instructional designer for the library. This course is offered 2 to 3 times per year. It's actually currently running right now, so maybe some of you are in it. But the course is really focused on, right now we have, you know, a few years of successes and also failures to talk about. And so the course is really built on the learning that we've been able to engage in over the past few years and building a community of faculty, designers. We've even had some academic advisors take it, and other librarians who are interested in increasing library integration into online courses, and kind of learning about what kind of instructional opportunities might exist with partnering with the library. So I just wanted to, this is a little bit of a pitch, but this has been a long-term idea of mine, is some sort of primary source assignment for our class. We have a lot of digitized, really cool and awesome material from special collections. And so being able to work with the World Campus class to get some sort of special collections assignment or activity in their class is something that I would love to be able to accomplish as the online learning librarian for Penn State, and kind of build that partnership and make another connection between online learning and another part of the Penn State Library. And I do want to say that Special Collections put together a really great and provided resources for a really nice timeline for the history of Penn State for a World Campus New Student Orientation. So there already are some partnerships, but I'd love to be able to kind of focus on the specific project. So if you're interested, I'm interested in that. So just in review, this is the toolkit, and obviously if I had an hour presentation, I would talk about this much more, have a much more robust discussion. But these are some of the opportunities that we have in partnering with the library and thinking about using the library in online courses. And this includes, right, World Campus has obviously been the focus because there's enough World Campus students to make that the focus, but every student at this point is distance learning, and for the foreseeable future, you know, things are going to change. There's going to be more online learning. So thinking more about how to integrate and create and partner with the library on various library integrations, using, you know, the collaborative approaches and the complementary integrations that were discussed in this presentation, as well as some professional development opportunities, right? So like in addition to OL 2400, we have a good partnership with the Blend LT program that TLT runs for people working on blended programs, blended courses, all of those various professional learning opportunities, almost too many, right, that Penn State provides. So these are my email and also Rachel's email as the instructional designer for the library. If you want to follow up on anything discussed in this brief presentation, we'd be happy to have additional conversations with you about all of that. So I'm going to stop my share.
Great, thank you so much, Tori. I think you finished technically a minute early, so great job. Everyone's doing so great with their timing today. It's tough to get all this information in 15 minutes. So with that, we're gonna turn it over to our last presenters today for our lightning talks. The title of this talk is Affordable Course Content, Adopting and Adapting OER at Penn State. And our presenters are Christina Riemann-Murphy and Elizabeth Nelson. And over to you.
Thank you, Emily. Good morning, everyone, or nearly afternoon. Elizabeth and I are going to be sharing a little bit about the student and faculty preliminary survey results from an open and affordable educational resources adoption grant that we run at Penn State Abington. And shout out to all the Penn State Abington folks that are participating. Thanks for being here. Just to give you a little background for those of you that may not be familiar, at Abington, our chancellor offers yearly chancellor's grants for projects that improve student success. And these grants are open to all faculty and staff. And in 2018, when Elizabeth was at Penn State Abington, we applied for and received a $5,000 grant for us to develop and implement what we called the Affordable Course Content Faculty Fellowship. And this grant is a small adoption grant, and you've heard a little bit about from Bonnie, various ways of adopting. An adoption grant, and in our first iteration, we were able to select 7 faculty out of 19 applicants and to support them during the end of the spring semester with multiple one-on-one, in-person, and Zoom librarian and instructional design support meetings. The financial impact of this Chancellor's grant and the resulting program is that 7 faculty who reworked their 9 courses saved 326 students over $45,000. There has been some additional significant impact around OER outreach for us, but for this presentation, we're going to share the results of our survey of the faculty and students who participated. And research around OER or OAER adoption is often looked at through the COOP framework, which focuses on cost, outcomes, use, and perceptions. And so we focused our research largely on use and perceptions. And so we asked our faculty what motivated them to participate. And while there were a range of reasons, what stands out as the primary motivators are that faculty wanted to learn about OER. They were concerned also about the financial burden for students coming from traditional textbooks, and with students not purchasing textbooks as a result. And they were also interested in teaching with more digital and online materials. And just anecdotally from this current cohort that we're running, our grant was renewed when the Chancellor saw the impact we were able to demonstrate. We're seeing the same, a strong combination of concern about financial burden and an interest in using online resources, particularly in light of the coronavirus and the uncertainties for the fall and the spring and future semesters. And so we also asked both faculty and students about costs. 80% of the faculty reported that their previous textbook had been between $100 and $150. This is of the faculty that participated. And our students reported that during this semester, where this one course had been free, they were still spending anywhere, as you can see, from $100 to $500 on all of their course materials combined. And the one student who said, I didn't spend anything because I couldn't afford it. We were also interested in knowing how faculty perceived the effectiveness and quality of the new open and affordable materials that they were using. One faculty member did feel that students gained a better understanding from the old course materials, but the other 6 felt that students seemed to understand at the same rate or better from the new course materials. And you can see from the comments on the right that there was a range of reasons for this. One felt the materials were more focused. One math faculty was ambivalent, but was really happy with My Open Math, which is a free homework utility that actually multiple math faculty in this fellowship adopted. And another was happy that they had more control over their materials. We had some faculty who participated in this.
Can I interrupt real quick? We're not seeing the PowerPoint.
You're not seeing the PowerPoint?
No, it's not showing on the screen. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Do you see that changing?
No, it's just showing the panelists, all our videos.
Has this been going on the whole time?
Yeah, I thought maybe I wasn't seeing it because I was a panelist, but
no. Okay, thank you for letting me know. Hold on. Did share screen blip away? Now?
Yeah, now it's there.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Thanks, Elizabeth, for the heads up. Sorry if somebody was chatting me and I didn't see it. I won't rerun those slides. You heard me talk. We have our slideshow available if anybody wants it. Anyway, so I was talking about the comments that were down here. So you can see from the comments that some faculty were happy that they could sort of customize their courses. And that's one of the benefits of open and affordable educational resources, is that those Creative Commons licenses that Bonnie was talking about give you the option to pull things together. So one faculty used a ton of the open psychology resources that were out there and worked with Brad Antill from TLT to create her own customized psychology textbook. As for students, we also asked them how they felt about the course materials that were used. And all those students felt positively about it being free, which is not a huge surprise. And while free is of course great and important, especially for many Abington students where 38% of them are Pell Grant eligible, we still are primarily concerned, right, that the materials are meeting the learning needs and the learning outcomes for the faculty member as well. And so we pulled some of the students' comments here. We did find some few negative comments, and some of those revolve around wanting an actual textbook or a physical copy. But even with that, you can see that students still express gratitude that the materials were free. I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth.
Perfect, thanks. And I'll just say next slide in between my pieces. But so we also asked our students and faculty about access to materials within their ACCFF courses. 60% of our faculty chose to make their materials available by embedding them directly in Canvas or by providing direct links in relevant sections of their Canvas courses. And 85% of our students felt that their ACCFF course materials were easier to access than materials in their other classes. Next slide. Thanks. When we asked them for some comments on access to materials, faculty and students agreed that students preferred easy access to materials through Canvas, with one student commenting, access is given directly through the platform that's also being utilized to complete tasks. Everything in one place simplifies things. Next slide. So when we asked faculty and students to rank the 3 most important factors for instructors to consider when choosing course materials, we also saw a nice correlation between the two main areas, the cost of the materials and how easy it is for students to access them. Here you can see the faculty factors on the left and the student factors on the right ranked as gold, silver, and bronze for their importance. Interestingly, a minority of our much wider pool of students also ranked factors gold that are related to personal privacy, the ability to share materials outside of class, accessibility, and additional learning components. Next slide. In addition to how students find and access OAER materials within their course structure, we're also interested in learning more about how the materials our faculty are choosing align with students' learning preferences. Here, 68% of our students indicated that they prefer to learn from a resource that at least feels like it's one textbook, and 58% of our students said that they felt they got that kind of resource from their ACCFF classes. We're really interested to know exactly what elements of the organization of materials, especially all digital materials, helps make it feel like one resource to students, and our next survey is going to focus in more on this area. Next slide. Oops, sorry, lost my place. So when we asked students about how they prefer to access materials, 42% said that they wanted their course materials to be available online, but 38% wanted the ability to get materials print or online. In terms of the technology that's actually available to them to do this, only half of our students mostly were able to use their own computer to access their course materials. The rest of our students relied on their phone or on shared or public computers. The apparent lack of regular access to personal, reliable tech does present an issue in terms of relying on fully online materials, but as we've seen recently, relying on physical materials does have its drawbacks as well. Next slide. When it was possible to print materials, almost none of our students chose to do so, but those who did mostly said it was because of their own learning preferences, including wanting to be able to handwrite notes or not being able to use handouts or access materials effectively on a phone. Next slide. In the final sections of our survey for faculty, we learned that 80% of our ACCFF cohort had never worked with a librarian on choosing course materials before. We were really pleased then that the general comments we got from faculty on this project were positive and ranged from feeling like they were doing their part to reduce financial barriers for their students to specifically appreciating and recommending listening to the input of librarians and instructional designers in terms of course material selection. And our faculty also brought up some deeper thoughts around the benefits of incorporating OER into their classes, including addressing some issues that they had previously seen as obstacles. For instance, in the highlighted comment, one faculty member discusses how collecting lots of different course materials and then forcing students to think through the connections and the transitions between those materials could actually be more pedagogically valuable than just providing a textbook that makes all of those connections and transitions and puts everything in context very smoothly so that students don't have to think about it. Next slide. We did want to touch a bit on our next steps and our insights from this project. Our insights included that faculty who, for disciplinary reasons, are more familiar with the concept of a course packet generally needed less assistance grasping the idea of using multiple OER in a similar fashion, but that our main part of ACCFF is actually about educating and providing logistical support as faculty learn and explore all these new kinds of methods and materials for their courses. Our participant faculty are starting to get excited about moving into adapting and authoring projects, at least some of them. And this is really just one of many ripple effects a grant like this can have. ACCFF has already helped Christina get in touch with student government at Abington to discuss OER and financial barriers to learning. And what we're both learning through the grant has helped us support faculty at both of our campuses who are interested in exploring OER without the structure of ACCFF or a similar project. For our next steps, we're almost halfway through our second round of ACCFF, and we're developing a Canvas course to support our current and our future participants and help provide some structure to the process and also some prominent research on OER for their information and education as they go through the project. We're also investigating ways to create a faculty champion campaign to help get faculty's voices and insights out from ACCFF to the campus and the system, since that's more persuasive to other faculty to hear from them. And we're working on our second round survey to dive deeper into some of the areas that we've covered in today's discussion. Next slide. So we want to take a second to thank you all for listening, but especially to emphasize two things. One, that we know we covered this very quickly, and there's a lot more detail in these survey results than we can get to today. So if you have any questions or any comments on anything we've covered, please feel free to reach out to us. That's Christina's email and my email respectively on the slide. But we also want to emphasize that this is an open project. A lot of our materials came from other librarians and other institutions that are doing similar projects who are willing to share their work. So if you're interested in pursuing a project like this, or you just want to see what we did, we're happy to share any materials that we've created, from our survey to letters we sent out to faculty to materials we're developing for Canvas. And you can review those, or you could adapt and use them in a similar project. We're really happy to work with anyone else who's interested in something like this. But thank you so much for listening.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Great, thank you, Christina and Elizabeth, for your presentation. We do have like a minute or two if anybody did want to get in a live question. Whether it's for Christina, Elizabeth, who just finished, or any of our presenters who went earlier, you're welcome to put those in the Q&A, and we could have a minute or two to take those. And Tori did have to leave, but she did want me to say that if anybody had any questions for her as follow-ups, to feel free to email her. And her email address is pretty simple. It's Victoria, her first name, @psu.edu. So that's pretty easy to get to her if you have any questions. So let me just double check here and see if we have anything. Okay, Tim, thank you. Put a reminder in about next week's sessions. So you can check that out in the chat if you're following along with schedules and dates and things. We had a lot of great comments overall for our presenters. We thank you very much for your time and for your attention to the time as we did this quick round of lightning talks. I think it went really well. So thank you all again, and we hope you will, continue to check out the summer series throughout the summer. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. And thank you, Amanda, for hosting today. We really appreciate your time. And we want to thank everyone in the audience for joining us and sharing your great questions. And like Emily said, we hope to see you next week.